before anything else, we want to thank Elizabeth Strickler for helping to arrange this with us. So thank you. And you can all, just let her know that you appreciate it if you do. So we'll see how we do today, I guess.
I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
So before we start, I think we should just introduce ourselves. I'm Dr. Ivy Peltz.
I'm Dr. Eric Studley.
And we are the founders of Doccupations, which is an online algorithmic dental job matching service. So when you're ready to look for a job, we are going to match you with jobs. So we'd like you all to take advantage of a free membership. And as we said, this applies to everybody, D0 through D4. We don't usually say D0, but yes, D0 through D4. It's great for you to join Doccupations now and create your profile now, because the process of creating your profile is going to actually help you start thinking about some of the decisions that you need to make. It will help you start processing those decisions way before you need to, which is going to help you when the time comes to look for a job. So the profile kind of forces you to do that. So the sooner you get going on that, the better off you're going to be, because dental school teaches you everything about the dental procedures, but very frequently you're kind of left to your own devices when it comes to getting a job. So this webinar today should help you with that. But before we begin, we're going to introduce each other a little more. We're going to tell you a little more about ourselves, and I'm going to let Dr. Studley get started.
So I'm Dr. Eric Studley. I graduated from New York University College of Dentistry in 1985. I started teaching there the day after I graduated, like one day a week. I eventually progressed teaching there and became an associate professor, a group practice director, as well as the director of practice management and ergonomics, which was a curriculum from D1 to D4, which was about 70 hours of lectures. Something like even today's presentation is one of the presentations that we used to present to the dental students there. I taught there for 33 years, retired in 2018. I was also in private practice for about 12 years when, unfortunately, due to a disability, I had to stop practicing. I ended up going back to school, got licensed in life, health, and disability insurance, and worked for different insurance companies, and then started my own insurance brokerage company, which is a nationally based company that specializes in the insurance needs of dentists throughout the United States. We work with all the different companies. For the last 18 years, I've been the top disability specialist in the United States with Guardian Disability Insurance. Now I'll turn ourselves over to Dr. Peltz.
So I also graduated from dental school in the 1980s, and I went into private practice at that time. Neither of us did a residency program, although we are going to very, very highly recommend that you do. It wasn't as much a thing at the time, and it also wasn't as necessary because our curriculum wasn't as jam-packed as yours is. But so I went right into private practice, and after 10 years, I decided I would like to teach. And I went back to NYU, which is where I also graduated from, and I began to teach there part-time. I kept my practice. I just retired in March. And while I was teaching, I became a clinical associate professor, a group practice director, and I got a master's in higher education administration, a PhD in higher education, and I got a master's in the Academy of General Dentistry. So we both are very seasoned and knowledgeable about not only dentistry, which is great, but kind of not as necessary as knowing about the career paths of dentists, and in particular dental students. So we're here to help, and that's what we're going to start doing right now.
So first of all, we also got a lot of good questions, and the nice thing when we see those questions, because we know we're going to cover them during the presentation. If you should have any other questions afterwards, you said, or during, you could just put it into the chat room. But if you do have questions afterwards, please feel free, and we'll give you our contact info so that you could, ask us questions further that you may think about. And we will respond to you. So, we're a good resource for you guys for that as well.
So as we said, creating a profile on Doccupations will make you start thinking about some of the things that you have to think about before you can look for a job. But what are some of those things? So the first thing is, where are you going to be? Are you going to stay where you are in West Virginia? Are you going to go back to where you're from, if you're from somewhere else? Are you going to try somewhere new entirely? These are decisions that you have to make. And when you're making those decisions, you have to take into account the feelings of your family members, especially if they're going to be moving with you. That becomes very important because you need buy-in from the whole family. And also you want to take into account some demographic information, like that will help you understand whether or not there's opportunity in the new place. So do you want to talk a little about the ADA?
And what demographics are when you are looking to open a practice or, look for opportunity, as Dr. Peltz mentioned, demographics will give you all of this information. It will tell you what the median income is in that area that you want to work in or, start a practice. It will tell you what the median, cost of homes are. It'll tell you what the cost of living is. These are very important factors. So many people are like, oh, I'd love to live in California or, Hawaii. And then when they find out like what the rent is and all of these different things, it really, cuts into what your income is going to be, because you have to plan a budget. So it's important that you use demographics. And, one of the free resources that you have is through the ADA, through the American Student Dental Association. And the ADA really has phenomenal free resources, for, dental students and people, and going into, practicing, associateships. They have some really good free information that you should look into. That also, when you're talking and thinking about relocating, especially moving into another state. We said we were going to really preach this. We're very big on doing that residency. We both taught for 33 years. We're very familiar with dental school curriculums. So we also know, number one, the learning gaps that unfortunately, graduates from, last year and this year, moving forward, there'll be certain gaps.
Even before that, what has happened is that dental school, you have a lot more to learn than that. Every year there's more to learn, but nobody takes anything away. So your curriculum is very crowded to begin with, and you can't really learn everything as thoroughly as you need to. So even before COVID, even before the break, even before people, couldn't attend dental school and so on, we highly recommend that dental students now do a residency program because it's an extra year of supervision, and you need it because you just haven't done enough of anything. Right. So now that you did have that pause, we recommend it even more. So we hope that every single one of you is seriously considering doing a residency program, but you still need to know what you're going to do after that.
But also, having that plan that you're going to do a residency program, if you are looking to relocate, doing a residency program in that state will really give you the best way to know, is this the place where, I finally want to settle? Because you get to live there, work there, and you really get a feel for a year. If you decide, what, it's not for me, and you go somewhere else, the license is much more portable than it used to be, the dental license. So as long as you know what, all the states that you're allowed to practice in, um, it really does open up for a dentist a greater landscape. And if you are not bound to any one specific place, really looking at these kinds of demographics could really help you create some opportunity um, that will give you, better jobs, better salaries, benefits, and all of those things.
Better lifestyle.
Right. So it's important to do that. And when you mention lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
that also comes into play
Mm-hmm.
when you are thinking about, do you want a high paced kind of practice? Do you want a community health based kind of practice?
Do you want to work part-time? Do you have
Right.
other interests you want to pursue? Do you have a family you need to take care of? Like, these are all things that you really need to think about and figure out. How are you going to balance your life with your career, so that work-life balance comes into play? And it's a very important thing, work-life balance. So you want to plan it correctly. You want to plan for the life that you want to have.
Right. At the beginning, unfortunately, you may not have that kind of flexibility.
Right.
When we both graduated dental school, we're like, oh, now we're dentists. We could work when we want, come, take off when we want. And our first 5 jobs, we both had rude awakenings. It's like, well, you can only take off this amount of vacation time. You can't take these days off. You have to give like weeks notice ahead of time. So at the beginning, like in anything that you're first starting, you will lose that flexibility. But if your future plans are to really control your own destiny, um, the beauty of our profession is that you really can create your own schedule to fit the kind of practice that you want.
Just be patient. Everything
Right.
we're talking about with jobs, it will come in time. But in the beginning, really, the kind of job that you're going to take is the kind of job that you get. So, but it's still good to know what you want, because otherwise you may get stuck in a job that you're not all that happy with, because you haven't really thought through what it is that you want, and you wind up somewhere that you weren't so crazy about, and you just stay. So it is important to do these little mental exercises.
Especially for the new dentists now. Um, this generation of dentists graduating are much more prone to, number one, working as associates, and also working as associates for much longer. So a lot of you may find opportunities with some of the DSOs, the corporates. Um, just be very aware of any job position that you take, of the contracts, the agreements that you will have to sign, because you may want to terminate this job for different reasons. And one of the main reasons, you start this job, it turns out it's nothing like what you had expected it to be. And now you just want to terminate your agreement. Well, these are legally binding documents. So it's important before you sign anything that you also know how you can get out of it. But this is where we also, state that you really have to find the right attorney, and not just any attorney. We all have friends, relatives. Oh, they do real estate attorney. They might do employment attorney. Dental contract law is very different, and you really need an attorney who is versed in dental employment contracts to guide you through this before you sign anything. Um, so that, if you do want to get out of it, you'll be aware of, how you can do
But
this.
but we know we have all years here, and some of you aren't
Right.
ready to think about that yet. So we said we would talk about what you could be doing no matter where you are in dental school. And one of the things you can be doing all along is updating your CV. So anytime something of note happens, you can go home that night and update your CV, and then just put in the margin, updated on such and such a date. That way, when you need your CV, you don't have to spend hours trying to reconstruct everything that happened and the date it happened and so on and so
Right, for
forth.
like the last 4 years.
Right. It's so much easier to just keep it updated. So that's one thing that you can constantly be doing.
One of the other things, that we recommend starting as D1s, um, are start compiling your letters of recommendation on the spot. Not saying, make the professor, automatic or write this letter out.
Hmm.
But, during your D1 years, D2 and 3 and 4, you're going to interact with many different professors. And there might have been some great mentorship relationship going on with one of the D1 professors. And they were quite impressed with you. And, they would bestow these accolades on you and say, that was really good work, all these different things. When that course ends, you should get a letter from that professor.
Or even before the course
Right.
ends, you work with a professor one day and they
Right.
say something nice about your work. Ask them that day if they would mind writing a letter of recommendation while that is fresh in their mind.
Right.
Because it's much easier to write a letter when you have an example to give, of a fine example to
Mhm.
give. So that would be a great thing to do. And don't worry that, there are two things that you might think this just won't work. One is that when you apply, you often have to waive your right to see the letter, but that's okay because you're just keeping it as a reference for the faculty member. I just got a request yesterday for a letter of recommendation, and the person who was requesting it attached a letter that I had written several years ago saying really she just needed it updated. So what a beautiful thing for the letter writer to receive is the letter already written, and all you have to really do is update maybe even just the date and the signature. But if you're still working with that professor and more things have happened, I would ask them to update it each time. So that's something you can be doing from D1.
And also, while you're in dental school, take pictures of what you're doing, even as a D1, your wax ups, um, your typodont, work, uh, like your technique, your skills. Take photos of that. And then as you progress and enter into clinic, um, take pictures of your patients through all different procedures. You'll go through what you would like to still, keep and show as opposed to not. But even study models, wax ups, um, treatment plans, cases, that you've treatment planned, and unfortunately the patient didn't go forward with the treatment, but you worked with many different phases of dentistry, and you have a before and after, a wax up that is just beautiful. Photos of that, still really worthwhile to show that on an interview, because and we'll talk about, it will help set you apart.
And to include in your CV.
Right. So when we talk about the CV, it really is, it probably, it's always been important. I think it's even more important now, as there are still more virtual interviews than there are in person. Some states, some companies, some dentists are starting to do more in-person kind of interviews, but the majority are still doing, more of that Zoom type of interview. Also, you might be interviewing for the first time when you are looking for a position. the person interviewing you may not be a dentist. It's going to be what they call an HR person, a human resources person. And they will be the one that you have to actually impress enough to get through to the next step. Or they might even be the one that, is their job to hire. So your CV is the first entry that will, help to set you apart. So everybody's going to have very similar CVs. Why? We all went to the same dental school for 4 years. You had your curriculums. So you're going to put down all of the necessary things. And since you, as a D1 or D2, you attended this presentation. So all along, you've been building that CV. So now you could really hone in on what's, the most important things, if you have, hopefully, a lot of information to choose from. But in order to also separate yourself from the others, we would like you to include an additional photo gallery attached to your CV, so that after they read your 2 or 3 pages of your CV, and now they go into a photo gallery.
Not of you.
Not of you, but of the dental treatment that you've performed. So, first would be your endo cases. And these are just radiographs. So also make sure that all of these attachments, photos are all HIPAA, 100% HIPAA compliant.
Also make sure they're cropped well, and make sure that your work is immaculate, and show the photos to your most critical faculty member, and make sure that they think they look good. It's not enough that you think it looks good.
But you really want to be able to showcase, so that you have endo, and you did a single canal, a premolar, a molar, then a perio case, maybe surgery or an implant case, maybe something in aesthetics. And this is where, well, you never really had that opportunity, but you did 6 veneer wax ups, and for a full mouth rehab that is just magnificent. You having photos of that will also speak for itself. If you want to take that one step further, you can do a web-based CV. And what that would encompass, instead of having your CV on paper and then the photos attached, you would have a website, with your name, nice picture on it, beautiful, clean, white coat. And instead of having these paper kinds of recommendations, you would have one of your first tabs would be recommendations. And there would be a live video of myself, for example, speaking about this student. And there would be another
About
faculty member, right, about you. And then there'd be another faculty member. That would be on that tab. And then all those other photos.
So like testimonials, instead of a letter of recommendation, a video testimonial.
And if you can get the faculty to stand under the school banner, get them a clean coat, it really looks much nicer too. But, then they have all the drop-down tabs. So then, you would see endo, and they would have, all their digital photos of that, and all the other different phases of dentistry. I will tell you, graduates of mine that have used that have really been able to choose where they want to work. Because, and we had gotten a question about branding yourself.
Well, we're going to talk about that next. So the way to brand yourself. So the other thing you can start working on right away is branding yourself. So branding, that was really smooth. Branding yourself means that you are going to decide how you're going to present yourself professionally to the rest of the world, and you're going to be very consistent with that brand. And now we are talking about photos of you, by the way, because this includes your social media presence as well, because employers as well as patients will look you up on social media. So in D0 is the time that it's time to start appearing professional on your social media posts. So when we talk about branding, what we're talking about is figuring out what are your distinctive qualities. So we don't know what your distinctive qualities are, but you do. And maybe they have nothing to do with dentistry. Maybe your distinctive quality is that you have a very you're a leader. Everybody's drawn to you, and you have no problem delegating responsibility. Or maybe it's your organizational skills, or how friendly you are, or how easily you put people at ease. So we don't know what it is, but whatever it is, otherwise, as Dr. Studley said, the employer or the HR person or whoever is posting this job is looking at a pool out at a sea of applicants who all look the same. So it's great to talk about your great dentistry, but let's assume that everyone's going to do that. And that is where the photos will help, if they're very good photos. And you have to think about something that no one else is really going to bring forward, because it's not them, it's you. So that's something that you can start thinking about right away, is how are you going to brand yourself? And that, we're talking about a very general type of branding, but
Right.
it can extend to, the type of print that you're using when you're sending an email and things like that, that you really want to distinguish yourself from the others.
Right. I've seen students, even when they're first applying, they come up with their own logos. And that sometimes actually becomes a question. Like, how did you come up with that logo? Like, well, I designed it. Oh, you know how to design it? And all of a sudden it becomes, wow, not only is this person, graduating and, could take, but they really have good knowledge and all these other things. I think they could help grow my practice.
Well, I was just going to mention, so yeah, not only are you thinking about your outstanding qualities, because, maybe you're an Olympic figure skater, but that's not going to help a dental practice very much. So it's not just what are your outstanding qualities, but how will they contribute to somebody's dental practice?
Right.
Because that's what you're selling, how you can contribute to someone else's dental practice.
So one of the important things, giving them this information, but how do you actually find and start, getting your name out there? Especially now since, we're getting through the pandemic and, a lot more are open. I know some of the dental society meetings are starting to come back to live meetings. I know in the fall, we've already gotten invitations for certain meetings. Society meetings, once you are able to get out there, will be one of your greatest resources for helping to market yourself. If you are looking to relocate, find out, the local dental societies in that state, in that county, and they will give you a calendar of events, and they always have all these events, and they actually also have specific new dentist events, because Dr. Peltz and I, we speak at a lot of those. And these are great networking events for dental students. When we present at a lot of the different societies, we'll see former graduates of ours, or we'll see dental students from the dental school that's in that state. And because usually dental students are also invited, or they get themselves invited, and they attend these, and here they are in dental school, and they're already building mentors and opportunity from dentists that are there. And you've all been in dental school. Dentists, we're a really nice bunch. We're a very helpful bunch. And when you attend these meetings, those dentists will want to mentor you, will want to help, because it's just kind of what the profession does. So attending those meetings, and that's where also bring your CV when you go to these meetings, because any dentist that's there, regardless that they may not be hiring an associate this year or next year, every dentist also knows tons and tons and tons of other dentists. And, we all talk to each other, and in conversation, I'm looking to hire somebody. And, that dentist who was at that meeting yesterday and met you, they're like, I met a really nice young dentist. I have their contact info, give them a call. And you'd be surprised how you could really work with that. Another good thing, study clubs. And once again, even while you're in dental school or even when you're in residency, join the local study clubs. They always want people to show up for that. And another excellent way of networking, with practicing dentists. Um, Going along that, any of the dental school alumni events, and not only the alumni events, but when you graduate, you will now be an alumnus of your school. Um, you will join that. If you are looking, send an email out to all the alumnus from the dental school, within the last X number of years with a really nice cover letter and with your CV attached. And they will give you a possible opportunity, especially because we all love to hire, other grads from our schools because we were all trained the same way. So we sort of have that same core knowledge. So that's another way of trying to get your foot in the door, so to speak.
And one other thing that you can work on from early on is your presentation skills. Because as we said, you have a moment or two to make an impression on somebody once you do get a foot in the door and you're actually at an interview. So if you're shy or you don't like bragging about yourself, you're going to have to work on this. So you can start right away with role playing with your friends, or, that's probably the best way to improve your presentation skills, or start presenting a little bit. And that
Right.
definitely helps, because the best thing you can do to get over a fear is just do it. Do whatever it is that you're afraid of. Otherwise, you can't get over the fear until you do the thing that you're afraid of.
Right. And, as dentists and dental students, you're in the greatest place to really work on those presentation skills, because the presentation skills is what we have to develop to present to our patients,
Right.
To present to faculty. So, practicing your presentation skills and getting better and better at it, and knowing, where you really need to improve and continue, that will make you so much more comfortable when you get into those interview situations or even patient interaction situations.
So I do want to remind everybody that if you need any insurance advice, you can reach Dr. Studley at insurance@drericstudley.com. Also, all of these announcements that I'm making are in the chat box. So if you would like to, you don't feel like writing it down, you can always cut and paste. So we've talked about what you can be doing all along, but what about when you are ready to search? So first of all, we always get asked when you should start looking for a job, actually start looking, and that's probably about 3 months before you're ready to take a job. But when you start looking, please remember that you can't start working until you've graduated dental school, you have a dental license in the state in which you're looking, and you have malpractice insurance. So those are 3 definite requirements that have to happen before you can start to work. So even though you're looking, you should make it clear to your employers, your potential employers, what your time frame is, and that there may be some, there needs to be some flexibility with that, since some of those things you can't necessarily accurately predict.
Right. A good way also is to ask the class that just graduated, how long did it take for them to get their license when they were applying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know this last year it took extremely, long.
And there are pieces out of your control,
Right.
like the dental school has to do things, and
Right.
the state has to do things, and you have to do things. So it might take longer than you anticipate. And I don't know how it is at your institution, but in some dental schools, not everybody finishes on time. So there's that too. So, just be realistic before you start looking, because you don't want to get a job before you're ready, because then you're going to disappoint your employer before
Right.
you even start.
Right. Which will probably prevent you from ever being able to start with that employer.
Right.
And we talked about, how to market yourself. Um, one of the other things we recommend, yes, we gave them the Docupation site, and we, want you to use all of these kind of online sites um, to, increase your chances of getting employment. One of the other things that we had done many years ago, which still stands true, we had both, unbeknownst to each other, because we didn't even know each other, both had wanted to practice in a certain zip code, not the same zip code, but we had both, there was a certain area that where we grew up, and this is where we wanted to practice. So back then we didn't have the emails, but we got what's called the yellow pages, and I picked up all
Which
these
was
dentists.
a list of businesses.
Right, list of businesses.
So you look under dentist, and then there's the address with the zip code.
Right.
You have to scan them manually, with your eyes, but still.
But, we picked them out, and it was a couple of hundred.
Wrote out a letter.
Each one, and sent our paper CV. I think it was about 300 dentists. And these were not dentists that were looking to hire us. But
well, we didn't know.
We didn't know.
We were just
They
randomly.
weren't ads in the paper. They weren't, that we saw somewhere, or anybody said, "Oh, go to apply to Dr. Smith's office."
Right.
It said dentist, so it was in that zip code, and we pretty much, blanketed that zip code with our CVs. We both received callbacks, and we both got jobs from that.
One of my jobs was from somebody who had no intention of hiring anybody at the moment. So you never know where, the point is, you never know where you're going to find your job. You never know what's going to lead to a job. But what is certain is you will be working for or with a dentist, So when it comes to socializing, or professional socializing, I should say, you want to keep yourself in dental circles, because even your classmate, you're not your classmates necessarily, but these people who are on this webinar with you, maybe you're D1, and you see there are some D3s or D4s, they could wind up hiring you one day. So the more dentists you talk to and impress with yourself, that's the thing, it goes back to the branding. You want to leave a favorable impression on every dentist you speak to.
Right. And then also, I'm not familiar if your school has it, but a lot of the dental schools have job boards for postings. The ADA has job boards in a lot of different states, which is also for free. So you should, once again, go on that site as well. And, here's where you're going to have to kind of put yourself out a little bit. But I know that there were certain dental practices that I really wanted to work in. And I actually got one of the jobs. Unfortunately, financially, it didn't fit for me. But I approached them. Like, I literally just said, I want to work on this one. They were doing implants already in the 80s. This is like the place I wanted to be in. And also, once again, not looking to hire, but they were impressed with this kid, and they offered me a position. Unfortunately, financially, it wasn't good for me, but they weren't even looking at that point. So if you have your eye on something, go for it. You're a dentist. You asking to, speak to that dentist. And that's where, if they're alumni, that's where you use the alumni ticket to help get yourself in as well.
But you can call or email a dentist and say that you're in dental school and you're looking for a mentor, and would they be willing to, have a video call with you so you can ask some questions or whatever. Start reaching out to people. It's all about relationships. That's how you're going to find a job. Someone's going to know someone. Or, then there are job boards and so on. There's that route too. But it's likely that you're going to find a job that you are very interested in through people that you know.
Mhm. Right, that old way still works.
Yeah. So our next webinar, we're not done yet, but our next webinar with you is going to be insurance needs of the new dentist, and that will be April 26th at 7 p.m. If you check the chat box, you'll see a registration link there. So please register and encourage your friends to do so too. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you prepare for an interview once you get one. And what we want to impress on you more than anything else is that you really need to research the job, because all the way that you're going to impress an employer, other than everything we've already mentioned, is by doing your research in advance and understanding the practice. So you want to go to the website, you want to see which procedures are done, you want to understand the philosophy of the practice. You can find out so much online. Go to patient reviews. There are so many ways to get information about a practice. But then you want to try to figure out what you can bring to this practice. Again, that's how you're going to impress the employer. When an employer puts an ad in a paper or wherever, some vehicle, some way to get information to you that they need someone to work for them, that means that they have a need that has to be filled. They're overwhelmed.
It's an immediate need.
It's a need. So if you can go into that interview and not in an overly cocky kind of way, but in a way that makes sense for where you are in your profession, which is, at the beginning, which they know just by looking at your CV. But if there's some way that you can manage to reassure them that you're going to make their lives easier, they will want you to work for them. Because most people come into a job interview wondering what the job is going to do for them. But if you come in and say, I'm here to help, this is what I think that I can do for you, they're going to be very impressed.
So one of the things, by doing your research of a dental practice, you could see, very clearly on the website, office hours. And maybe they're not open weekends. Maybe they're only open one night a week. Well, guess what? You're that young dentist, and as a young dentist, starting dentist, you could actually build your schedule, quicker, having, appointments and working evenings and weekends than you can, let's say, a lot of times, working in the morning hours. So if you could now offer and say to that dentist, well, if you're willing to open, I'm willing to work, an extra night, 2 nights a week. And I'll work, one day on the weekend. I'll work Saturdays or Sundays, however the practice works. All of a sudden now, you have kind of turned the table, and you are not taking from the employer, because as the employer, and we can say that when we're hiring that associate, right away we're thinking, oh my God, we're going to lose 30% of our income because we have to give them 30% of the patients they treat. They're going to use up supplies like crazy. I'm going to have to hire another assistant to work with them. So my overhead is going to increase. That's what's going through the employer's mind. When all of a sudden you say that you can actually create opportunity for the employer, they're actually taking someone off guard, because now they're like, oh, you know what? I've had, I have a backlog of patients, just for my one evening that I work. I'm sure I could fill a dentist, by next week. I can have 10, 15 patients for them. Yes, that's what the amount of patients that you would be seeing, at least. So you're now creating something. The same way you look that they don't do certain procedures. Well, maybe, in your dental school, you graduate, you're Invisalign certified in class 1 cases. They don't do that in that office. You know what? You explain, what the income generation, what Invisalign can do. Maybe you're now taking additional courses and you're certified or will be in sleep apnea treatment. These are all additional benefits that you can add to an employer when most others that they might have interviewed that didn't attend our presentation won't be able to, like, they'll just be so much more impressed with you because you're more of the giver as opposed to the taker.
So one last really important point about an interview is that if you're asked to go on a working interview, you have to have a license and you have to have malpractice insurance. You cannot,
Your own malpractice.
right, you cannot work under that dentist's malpractice insurance or license. What works in dental school does not work outside of that building, and you need your own. So if you don't have your license yet or malpractice insurance, you cannot go on a working interview where they're going to ask you to treat a patient. So with that, I think we should probably let you know that we have decided to treat you all to a $5 Starbucks gift card. So if you would fill out the form at the link in chat, we will email you a gift card. So please make sure to do that. Also, we have a winner of our $50 Amazon gift card.
Yay.
And that is Michelle Snodgrass. So Michelle, if you are here, please type yippee into the chat to receive your gift card. So we have enjoyed presenting to you. I see Michelle is here. Congratulations. We've enjoyed presenting to you. I believe we're going to be with you next week, and we're looking forward to that. Please send in your questions, and we hope you have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.